Brought to you by...
If you are out there, like me, scouring the world for the next great fear, searching for something truly horrific, then you need not look any further than the atrocities committed in our past. Human beings can be the greatest threat, especially when guided by a mind far more demented than most. Hello friends and welcome back to ETF. In 1969, two couples gathered for a farewell party at an elegant home. The festivities are soon ruined when a group of murderous intruders enter their home and set upon the two couples. Directed by cinematographer turned director John R. Leonetti, this film aims its sights on the infamous night that members of the Manson family descended on the home of Hollywood starlet Sharon Tate. However, this film tries something a little bit different. Here we focus on the perspective of Tate's longtime friend, Abigail. Now, the interesting thing here for me was that I went into this film assuming that it was going to be a separate story that took place during the same time as the infamous Manson murders, but had no real connection. With this mentality in mind, I obviously noticed the similarities of the real-life case, and just assumed that they were basically telling the same story with different characters. However, that wasn't it. Because of this misconception, I found myself wishing that they had spent more time establishing that this was Shannon Tate and her friends. Instead, they chose not to say their names very often and kind of gloss over these characters in ways that make them feel like random 20-somethings living in Hollywood Hills. However, this doesn't ruin the experience. In fact, looking at it now, in some ways it elevates it. This film uses many popular tropes today, telling your standard home invasion story. It has become somewhat of a fad to have people silently standing in the background of shots in horror films these days, almost as if people have just recently realized that the Michael Myers format actually works. The opening moments here see an old couple stalked as their home is invaded by ominous intruders under the cover of darkness. Moments later, the police arrive to find the house ransacked. The words "little pig" sprawled in blood along the door and walls, and the occupants completely unharmed. Several familiar faces make up our cast here, including Katie Cassidy and Adam Campbell, who previously worked together in the miniseries Harper's Island. Miles Foster and Elizabeth Hedtridge also appear. I've seen them both in a few things here and there, but never anything substantial. And Eric Layton plays our detective that is investigating the crimes, but only ever shows up in one scene. The film sticks our cast of 20-somethings into an isolated, somewhat rural house to better lock them into an impending doom that is sure to befall them. They do a pretty good job cementing us into the summer of '69 here, utilizing all the modern tropes of period-appropriate music cues and a simple, smooth camera style that helps things feel more of the time. There's no way that you will mistake this for a 60s film based on the visuals alone, but I appreciate the effort. The only thing that really hurt this experience for me was that it wasn't perfectly clear who we were dealing with right off the bat. So at first I saw Katie Cassidy as being set up to be a stand-in for Sharon Tate. In the film, she plays a blonde, somewhat recognizable actress named Sharon. Honestly, I was thankful once everything started to come together, because I thought it was far too on the nose to be an homage. A choice was made early on to keep our intruders obscured throughout the film, steeped in shadow, at a distance and out of focus, or cleverly framed to hide their identities. The approach to this film felt very much in line with The Strangers. The filmmakers chose to use a fluid, modern camera style that I felt added to the experience quite a bit. It built some tension at the right moments and allowed the filmmakers to slowly and gradually reveal the horrors as they close in on the already isolated home. Given that Leonetti comes from a cinematography background, it's no surprise why the film looks so good. It doesn't take all that long before our characters begin to be divided and picked off in brutal ways. However, the gore and violence is kept to a minimum, and the horror is more strategically tackled to make for a far more tense experience. I think not showing the gore or grotesque nature of each kill does make each moment feel more violent and visceral, like when we watch Jay get violently stabbed to death through the reflection of the vintage TV. I'm sure this choice helped the budget stay very low as well. The plot of this progresses very quickly. Before we know it, most of our cast is dead, and we are left with our lead females being stalked and toyed with. The film comes wrapping up with a series of news footage from the real Manson murders and the photos of the real-life victims, basically stating that what we have just seen was meant to be a depiction of the actual events that occurred to Sharon Tate and her friends. Personally, I feel like if I had known what this film was aiming to be when I went into it, maybe it would have ultimately sat better with me. However, since throughout the film I felt like it was trying to just tell a similar story to the Manson murders, while not actually being them, it hurt the experience in a mild manner. Turns out it was just exactly what most people probably thought it was. I'm giving Wolves at the Door a B-. This is not a bad film by any means, and honestly is one of the better depictions of these crimes that I've ever seen. I mean, it sure beats the hell out of The Haunting of Shannon Tate.